Sometimes people that are strangers or don't know me well might ask the question, may I ask why you're in a wheelchair? And I'm like, oh, yeah, certainly, no problem at all. I have muscular dystrophy. And they're like, oh, really? And I was like, yeah. And so that starts the conversation. And it might start like, oh, my sister has MS, or my aunt or my grandmother or somebody has MS, and it was a real struggle for her. And, I'm so sorry that you had that. And I'll sweetly correct them and say, I don't have MS, I have MD. And they're like, MD? And I'll say, yeah, it's muscular dystrophy. It's not multiple sclerosis. And then they'll have that kind of look like, what's the difference? And I'm like, okay, muscular sclerosis, MS, is a nerve disease. And what happens with MS is your nerves that go all over your body do not connect with the muscles. And so the nerve, since it's not carrying the message for the muscles to move or do whatever they're supposed to do, then that is what the struggle is for the person with MS. For muscular dystrophy, it's just muscular. It's just the muscles themselves. And just recently, they have discovered, I'm talking like last year, discovered that it's a metabolic condition. And I was, when I got diagnosed, the doctors told me that there is no cure for muscular dystrophy. And I said, and I have always said, yes, there is. You just haven't found it yet. And they would look at me like, yeah, okay, you're a crazy lady, but all right, So anyway, I was not born with it. And it was a complete, total surprise when I started having weakness in my muscles while I was still a young woman. I didn't get diagnosed until I was about 42 years old. And I noticed that my muscles started getting weaker at about age 35. Now, I will tell you that I have 5 children. Well, I had at the time 5 children. I have 7 now. And it was getting harder to do my job as a wife and as a mother. And at the time, I had been a stay-at-home mom and raised my children. And we all, they grew up in the church, and I homeschooled them, and they're all, successful adults now. But at the time, I still had most of them at home, and they all noticed that I was walking funny, and like I would throw a ball. We were going out to play, throw a ball, I'd throw it funny. I would pick up a glass funny, and they were just noticing that something wasn't right. And it was my sister who wrote me a letter, just a really sweet letter. And my sister and I are like best friends. And she wrote me a letter, says, Donnie, you need to go get diagnosed because you've got something, and quit living in denial. And I can't say that I was really living in denial, but I was living in denial. And to me, it was like, I know that women get weaker, like especially in their arms when they get older, like in their 40s or a little bit older. And definitely elderly women lose a lot of their muscle strength in their arms, but not somebody my age, because I was still young and like, oh my gosh. But anyway, I did finally go to the doctor, my primary care physician, and he looked and he did all the things, and he said, you've got something. And I was like, is it MS? And he says, I don't think so, because you don't have the symptoms. And but it's something. And he says, I'm gonna refer you to somebody smart. He said, I gotta see a neurology, so I'm gonna send you over to a neurologist. And I was like, okay. So I went to the neurologist, and he definitely concurred with my PCP's suggestion that I've got something. And I was like, oh, great. Is it cancer? Is it MS? Am I going to die? What, you know, when you know you've got something, but you don't know what it is, it's scary. And it was scary. And it took them some time for me to be able to get in to get an appointment, because when you're dealing with specialists, they're booked for half a year or even a year. And I'm like, well, what if you're going to die? Like, what, you know, what if you're in an emergency? What happens? But since this was an initial and it was going to take quite a while, I had to wait. And that was grueling, because we all, you know, the whole family and my extended family, my friends and everybody were like genuinely afraid for me. And so